I'm in Shenandoah National Park, and this is the Buck Hollow trailhead. This is at the bottom of the mountain on the east side. That's US Route 211 heading up towards Thornton Gap, and the park entrance is up there. Here's a gray ghost. Kind of sketchy parking here because it's full. I'm going to close up the gray ghost, and I'm going to hike about a quarter of a mile up 211 to a jumping off point. I'm going to be looking for an old cemetery up here. The elevation here is 1080. A quarter of a mile into my hike, the elevation here is 1145. Maybe you can see the cars down there. That's where I parked. There's also a gravel pull-off up here that you can park at. Anyway, I'm at my jumping off point. This looks like the old road heading up towards the homestead, so I'm gonna start climbing the hill here. If I'm right about the cemetery, it should be right up here on top of this hill. I don't know. We'll go up here and take a look. Three-tenths of a mile into my hike. The elevation here is 1,200 feet. And here it is. Let's see, I came, if you see over that way, maybe you can make out that there's a little bit of there's a creek that drains down through there. And just on this side of the creek, down there, well, there's Route 211 right there. And then the old road comes up here on this side of the creek, on the east side of the creek, and then up to about there, and then it comes over here. Okay, and the road ends right about there. There's a boxwood, and here's a bunch of stones with names on them. I'll get pictures of these. Note to myself, I'm going to update my guess. I had to guess at the coordinates. That one there says Dodson, D-O-D-S-O-N. And then over here's another one, monument. So I'll look around. This would be hard to find in the summertime, unless you know exactly where to look. In the wintertime, if you come up here, you can look for these taller monuments like that one and find it. And up there I see 4 metal pipes driven into the ground, boxing something off. We'll go up there and check that out too. The sun's at a really low angle, so it's going to be very hard to get good pictures. But this one says Mary H. Atkins, A-D-K-I-N-S, died December, might be 5th, 1918. So she died in 1918. So the opposite side of the same monument says George W. Atkins, died September 10th, 1921, age 70 years. Okay, here's a couple of burials right here. with no names. There's one monument right there, one stone. There's another one right there. That might be another one over there, because this whole area here has been dug out and leveled off. So, and then for reference, down there is the George W. Atkins monument with the name on it. So here's a couple with no names. I'm over closer to 211 now. That's another one right there. And this looks like some right here. There's one there. That might be one that got pushed over by the tree growing up. Right there's an axe head. Right there, see that? This is probably another marker. And okay, and then over here, hold on, over here's another one right here. And you can't go any further because it just drops off. There's 211. Right down there, there's this huge drop off here. But that's one there. This could be one right here. I mean, this is, you can see where people have been coming up through here. And then the monuments with the names are over that way. I'm going to go back over that way. And I thought I saw some more further up the hill this way. Okay, here's the area that was staked off with these 4 metal posts right here. And there's a big hole in the ground here. There's a hole in the ground there, and there's another one just on the other side there, which makes me think that maybe, I'm guessing here, maybe some people were buried here. And then sometime later, the family decided to move them somewhere else. So, you know, they came up here and marked the spot, and then they dug it out and just left the holes here. Now, below this is the mother lode of monuments. I'll get down there in a second and get those pictures. Now, actually, from this vantage point, if you look over there, just to the right of that big tree, you can see the road that came up here. Okay, here's John S. Dodson. Born July 6, 1852, died July 28, 1924. And next to him is Cora A., wife of J.S. Dodson. Born October 11, 1855, died April 16, 1933, gone but not forgotten. Okay, here's Mary A. Dodson, daughter of John and John S. and Cora Dodson, died November 23rd, 1905. Age 31 years, 5 months, and 12 days. Okay, this one's really hard to make out. It's next to the Dodsons here. It says Archie. I guess it was the son of the Dodsons, died sometime in 1907, and I can't read the age. Okay, here's a infant, Cecil Rena, daughter of Albert and Nina Clark, born October 27, 1915, died January 24th, 1919. So she was like 3.5 years old. One more angel in heaven. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And then there's the lamb on top. Well, something I should point out about John Dodson and his wife Cora, their grave sites are dug out. There's Cora. Let me get down a little, maybe you can see. It's dug out, and John's is dug out, and whoever was in front of them is also dug out. So I think this might be another case of where these people got moved. When I get home, I'll put their names in to find a grave and see if it shows them buried somewhere else down off the mountain. But those are definitely dug out. It looks like once upon a time this graveyard must have had barbed wire and barbed wire fencing around it, because there's the barbed wire laying against a tree, and that could be the remains of a like a cedar post that was stuck in the ground once upon a time. So there you have it. All right, well, the cemetery's back here. I followed this over the road over. There's the creek coming down, draining the mountain. The old map showed the homestead location over there on the west side. So I'm going to go over there for a couple minutes and look around. It looks really overgrown down there, so I might not be able to navigate. But so it looks to me like what they did was the homestead was over there on the west side, and then there's the creek, and then they came over here on the east side, and up on the hill there is where they put the cemetery. That way from the homestead they could look up there on the hill and see the graveyard. So I'm going to go over here on the west side for a second and see if I can find anything. Okay, here's the rock pile. I was only about 80 feet off from the early maps showing the location. There's some pretty big rocks in this rock pile. I'll try and get some better pictures of it, but just as a reference, I came down. If you cross over the creek, the cemetery's over there up on the hill, and then you got to cross over the creek and work your way down here. And then now that I'm down here, I can see that this whole area where you see all this brush piled up, this was all dug out. Down there, that glimmer of light that you see, that's a car pulled off on a little gravel area just before, and then that yellow sign there is where it goes from 1 lane to 2 lanes up the mountain. So here's the rock pile. There's an obvious road heading over that way. Must have gone out to where 211 is, like a driveway. So this was only off by like 80 feet, which is pretty good. So I'm going to mark this. I'm going to readjust my waypoint to here, and I'll try and get some better pictures of the rock pile. Maybe from the other side with the sun in my back. Okay, now I'm on the other side of the rock pile. The sun's at my back. And, you know, now that I'm looking at those rocks, I think that was more than a rock pile right there, starting over there. I think this might have been actually part of the foundation. Because look at the size of those rocks. And they're stacked up nice and neat. And there's one there that got pushed over onto the ground somehow. And look what happened over the last 100 years. This big honking tree has grown up through the rock pile. Look at that. Great big thing. Oh man, that's a big tree. So that's what 100 years does for you. And over there's some big rocks. This is definitely where it was. And then behind here is the mountain, but it's dug out back there, but it's hard to tell that it's dug out because of all the brush that's fallen into it. Well, this is definitely where it was. This is a map of today's hike. The quadrangle name is Thornton Gap 1994. And I went looking for an old cemetery known as the Atkins Dodson Cemetery. It's on tract number 157, which was owned by J.O. Bailey. This tract of land is over on the eastern side of the mountain down near Sperryville. Sperryville's down here. And here's US 211 coming into the park. There's the park boundary right there. And you come on up, and right in here, as you start to climb, the mountain gets steeper here. The westbound lane changes from one lane to 2 lanes right about here, and this is where you have to push into the woods looking for this cemetery. This point number 1 is where the homestead location was. I drew these pencil lines in here to show you where this creek is. There's a creek that runs down through here, draining the land, and the homestead is located on the west side of the creek. So about a year ago, I went here looking for the cemetery over here on the west side. Well, I didn't find it, and that's because it's actually over here on this side. The way I figured out which side, I'll show you in a second how I figured out which side of the creek it was on. But anyway, I parked down here. This is the Buck Hollow trailhead, and hiked up here about a quarter of a mile to a jumping off point, and then I found the old road that came up here. The road comes up on the east side of the creek, and then it crosses over the creek and comes down to the homestead like that. So I followed the old road up here, and then when I looked over here to the right, I actually saw some of the monuments sticking up out of the ground. Came over here and got pictures of most of the monuments. There's I don't know, maybe a dozen monuments that have names on them. And then there's a lot of just field stones stuck in the ground marking graves that don't have names. I got a few pictures of them too. So then from there I wandered back across the creek over to here, looking around. Found what's left of the foundation here for the homestead. And then I did a little exploring over in this area, looking for stuff that I saw in a LiDAR image, but I didn't. I got over here to point number 3, and there's something there, but I can't tell what it is because it's just totally overgrown. So I backed out of there and got back down to the road, and then came back to my car. Now I'll show you a couple of other maps. This map is Stony Man 1929, and right there is the homestead. And you'll notice the creek is drawn in like here, and the homestead is down close to the road, and it's west of the creek. The other thing to notice is that this whole area here is white, which means that it was cleared out. In 1929, it was cleared out. And the cemetery is over here on the east side. Now, the way that I figured out the approximate location was by looking at this survey of the tract of land. This is from 1924. And there's a meets and bounds description that goes with this. This figure here shows the perimeter of the lot, and the survey describes it as a polygon with 20 points starting here and working around like this. Now when they get down to point number 17, which is right there, they said that that was near the cemetery. Okay, so that's a clue right there. So I took this and overlaid it onto the Shenandoah online records right here. And there's point 17 right there. And here's the creek. So I knew it was in this area somewhere. So you can put your cursor here and get coordinates off of this application here, and then hike to those coordinates. There's one other thing I want to mention. There's a book. If you're looking for books that have a lot of information about the park in them, this is the one to get. It's by Darwin Lambert, and there's a bunch of appendices in the back of this book, including one on cemeteries that list descriptions of a lot of the old family cemeteries that are in the park. There's a lot of other information in that book too. It's a really good book. Oh, I forgot to write down the stats for the hike, but it was about 1 mile, and the ascent was just a couple of 100 feet. And that was the hike for today.